Judges chapter 1 Canaanite in Palestine. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites consulted the Lord, asking, "Who shall be first among us to attack Canaanite and to do battle with them?" The Lord answered, "Judah shall attack. I have delivered the land into his power." Judah then said to his brother Simeon, "Come up with me into the territory allotted to me, and let us do battle with the Canaanites. I likewise go with you into the territory allotted to you." So Simeon went with him. When Judah attacked, the Lord delivered the Canaanites and the Perizzite into their power, and they struck down 10,000 of them in Bezek. They came upon Adoni-Bezek in Bezek and fought against him when they struck down the Canaanite and the Perizzite. Adoni-Bezek fled, they pursued him, and when they caught him, they cut off his thumb and big toes. 70 kings, said Adoni-Bezek, used to pick up scraps under my table with their thumbs and big toes cut off. As I have done, so has God repaid me. He was brought to Jerusalem, and he died there. The Judahites fought against Jerusalem, captured it, and put it to sword, setting the city itself on fire. Afterward, the Judahites went down to the fight against the Canaanites who live in the mountain region, in the Negev and in the foothills. Judah also marched against the Canaanites who live in Hebron, which was formerly called Gilead's Arba, and defeated Sheshai, Iman, and Talmai. They marched from there against the inhabitants of the Debor, which was formerly called Gilead's Sephor. Caleb said to the men who attacked Gilead's Sephor and captured it, "I will give my daughter Ashishar in marriage." Othniel captured it, the son of Caleb's younger brother Kenaz, so Caleb gave him his daughter Ashishar in marriage. When she came to him, she induced him to ask her father for some land. Then she alighted from the donkey. Caleb asked her, "What do you want?" She answered, "Give me a present, since you have put me in the land of the Negev. Give me pool of the waters." So Caleb gave her what she wanted, both the upper and the lower pools. The descendant of the Hobab the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, came up with the Judahites from the city of the palms to the wilderness of Arad, which is the Negev, and they settled among the Amalekites. Then Judah went with his brother Simeon, and they defeated the Canaanites who live in Jephthah. They put the city under the ban and renamed it Hormah. Judah captured Gaza with its territory, Ashkelon with its territory, Ekron with its territory, and Ashdod with its territories. The Lord was with Judah, so they gained possession of the mountain region, but they could not dispossess those who live on the plains, because they had iron chariots. As Moses had commanded, they gave Hebron to Caleb, who then drove the 3 sons of the Anak away from there. As for the Jebusites dwelling in Jerusalem, so Benjaminites did not dispossess them, so that the Jebusites lived with the Benjaminites in Jerusalem to present day. The house of the Joseph too went up against the Bethel, and the Lord was with them. The house of the Joseph had reconnaissance made of Bethels, which formerly was called Luz. The scouts saw a man coming out of the city and said to him, "Tell us the way into the city, and we will show you mercy." He showed them the way into the city, and they put the city to the sword, but they let the man and his whole clan go free. The man then went to the land of the Hittites, where he built the city and called it Luz, which is its name to this day. Manasseh did not take possession of the Beth-shean with its town, or of Ta'anar with its town, Nor did they dispossess the inhabitants of the Dur and its towns, those of the Ibrim and its towns, or those of the Megiddo and its towns. The Canaanites continued to live in this district. When Israel grew stronger, they conscripted the Canaanites as rebels, but did not actually drive them out. Ephraim did not drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer, and so Canaanites lived among them in Gezer. Nor did Zebulun dispossess the inhabitants of the Kidron or those of the Nahor. The Canaanites lived among them and became forced laborers. Nor did Asher dispossess the inhabitants of the Akko and those of the Sidon, and take possession of the Mahanarabs, Akijibs, Helbah, Api, or Lehors. So the Asherites settled among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land, for they had not dispossessed them. Nor did Naphtali drive out the inhabitants of the Bethel Shemesh or those of the Beth Anas. They settled among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land, and the inhabitants of the Beth Shemesh and the Beth Anas became forced rebels for them. The Amorites hemmed in the Danite in the mountain region, not permitting them to come down onto the plains. So the Amorites continued to live in the Haras, Aijalon, and the Sharbim. But as the power of the house of the Joseph grew, they were conscripted as rebels. The territory of the Amorites extended from the Akrabim Pass, from Salah and upward. Judges chapter 2. Infidelity of the Israelites. A messenger of the Lord went up from Gilgal to the Bochim and said, I brought up you out from Egypt and led you into the land which I promised on oath to your ancestors. I said, I'll never break my covenant with you. But you must not make a covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You must pull down their altars. But you did not listen to me. Look what you have done. For I also said, I'll clear them out of your way. They will become trap for you, and their gods a snare for you. When the messenger of the Lord had spoken these things to all the Israelites, the people wept aloud. They named that place Bochim, and they offered the sacrifice there to the Lord. Then Joshua dismissed the people, and the Israelites went each to their own heritage to take possession of the land. The people served the Lord during the entire lifetime of the Joshua and of those elders who outlived Joshua and who had seen all the great work the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him with the border of his heritage at the Timnath-Heres in the mountain region of the Ephraim, north of the mountain Gashur. When the rest of the generation were also gathered to the ancestors, and the later generation arose that did not know the Lord on the work he had done for Israel. The Israelites did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. They served the Baals, and abandoned the Lord, the God of their ancestors, the one who had brought them out of the land of Egypt. They followed other gods, the God of the people around them, and bowed down to them and provoked the Lord. Because they had abandoned the Lord and served the Baal and the Ashtaroth, the anger of the Lord flamed against Israel, and he delivered them into the power of the plunderers who despoiled them. He sold them into the power of the enemies around them, and they were no longer able to withstand their enemies. Whenever they marched out, the hand of the Lord turned against them, as the Lord had said, and as the Lord had sworn to them, and they were in great distress. But the Lord raised up judges to save them from the power of their plunderers. But they did not listen to their judges either, for they prostituted themselves by following other gods. Bowing down to them, they were kicked astray from the way their ancestors had taken, who obeyed the commandment of the Lord, but these did not. When the Lord raised up judges for them, he would be with the judges and save them from the power of their enemies as long as their judges lived. The Lord would change his mind when they groaned in their affliction under their oppressors. But when judges died, they would again do worse than their ancestors, following other gods, serving and bowing down to them, relinquishing none of their evil practice or stubborn ways. The anger of the Lord flared up against Israel, and he said, "Because this nation has transgressed my covenant, which I enjoined on their ancestors, and has not listened to me, I for my part will not clear way for them any more of the nation Joshua left when he died. They will be made to test Israel to see whether or not they will keep to the way of the Lord and continue in it as their ancestors did." Therefore the Lord allowed this nation to remain instead of expelling them immediately. He had not delivered them into the power of Joshua. Judges chapter 3. These are the nations the Lord allowed to remain so that through them he might test Israel, all those who had not experienced any of the Canaanite wars, to teach warfare to those generations of the Israelites who had never experienced it. The 5 lords of the Philistines and all Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites who live in the mountain region of the Lebanon between the Baal Hermon and the Lebo Hamas. This served as a test for Israel to know whether they would obey the commandment the Lord had enjoined on their ancestors through Moses. So the Israelites settled among the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and Jebusite. They took their daughter in marriage and gave their own daughter to their son in marriage and served their gods, Othniels. Then the Israelites did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the Asherahs. And the anger of the Lord flamed against them. He sold them into the power of the Cushan Rishathaim, king of the Aram Naharaim. And the Israelites served the Cushan Rishathaim for 8 years. But when the Israelites cried out to the Lord, he raised up the Savior for them to save them. It was Othniel, son of the Caleb's younger brother Kenaz. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel. When he marched out to the war, the Lord delivered the Cushan Rishathaim, king of Aram, into his power, and his hold on the Cushan Rishathaim was firm. So the land was at rest for 40 years until Othniel, son of the Kenaz, died. It did. Again, the Israelites did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, so he strengthened Eglon, king of the Moab, against Israel, because they did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. Taking the Ammonite and the Amalek with allies, he went and defeated Israel, taking possession of the city of the palms. So the Israelites served the Eglon, king of the Moab, for 18 years. But when the Israelites cried out to the Lord, he raised up for them a Savior, Ehud, the son of the Gera, a Benjaminite who was left-handed. The Israelites would send their tribute to Eglon, king of the Moab, by him. Ehud made himself a two-edged dagger a foot long and strapped it under his clothes on his right thigh. He presented a tribute to Eglon, king of the Moab. Now Eglon was a very fat man. When he had finished presenting the tribute, he dismissed the troops who had carried the tribute. But he himself turned back at the sculptured stone near Gilgal and said, "I have a secret message for you, our king." And the king said, "Silence." Then when all his attendants had left his presence, Ehud went into to him where he sat alone in his cool upper room. Ehud said, "I have a word from God for you." So the king arose from his throne. Then Ehud with his left hand drew the dagger from his right thigh and thrust it into Eglon's belly. The hilt also went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade because he did not withdraw the dagger from the body. Then Ehud went out onto the porch, shutting the door of the upper room on Eglon and locking them. When Ehud had left and the servant had come, they saw the doors of the upper room were locked and thought he must be easing himself in the cool chamber. They waited until they were at the loss when he did not open the doors of the upper room, so they took the key and opened them, and there was their Lord lying on the floor dead. During their delay, Ehud escaped and passing the sculpture stone took refuge in Serirah. On his arrival, he sounded the horn in the mountain region of the Ephraim, and the Israelites went down from the mountain with him as their leader. Follow me, he said to them, for the Lord has delivered your enemy the Moabite into your power. So they followed him down and seized the fords of the Jordan against the Moabite, permitting no one to cross. On that occasion, they slew about 10,000 Moabites, all of them strong warriors, and not one escaped. So Moab was brought under the power of the Israel at that time, and the land had rested for 80 years. Shamgar. After him there was Shamgar, son of the Anas, which slew 600 Philistines with an ox goad. He too was a savior for Israel. Judges chapter 4, Deborah and Barak. The Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. Ehud was dead. So the Lord sold them into power of the Canaanite king Jabin, who reigned in the Hazor. The general of his army was Sisera, who lived in the Harosheth Hagoyim. But the Israelites cried out to the Lord, for with his 900 iron chariots, Jabin harshly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. At that time, prophet Deborah, wife of the Lapidus, was judging Israel. She used to sit under Deborah palm trees between Ramah and Bethel in the mountain region of the Ephraim, where the Israelites came up to the hall for judgment. She had the Barak, son of the Abinoam, summoned from Kadesh of the Naphtali. She said to him, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, commands. Go march against the mountain Tabor and take with you 10,000 men from Naphtali and Zebulun. I drew Sisera, the general of the Jabin army, out to you at the Wadi Kishon, together with his chariot and troops, and I will deliver them into your power." But Barak answered her, "If you come with me, I will go. If you do not come with me, I will not go." "I will certainly go with you," she replied, "but you will not gain glory for the expedition on which you are setting out, for it is into woman power that the Lord is going to sell Sisera." So Deborah arose and went with Barak and journeyed with him to Kadesh. Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh, and 10,000 men followed him. Deborah also went up with him. Now Heber Kenite had detached himself from Cain, the descendant of the Hobab, Moses' father-in-law, and had pitched his tent by the Tarapins of the Jahananim, which was near Kadesh. It was reported to the Sisera that Barak, son of the Abinoam, had gone up to the mountain Tabor. So Sisera called out all 900 of his iron chariot and all his forces from Harosheth Hagoyim to Wadi Kishon. Deborah then said to Barak, "This is the day on which the Lord has delivered Sisera into your power. The Lord marched before you." So Barak went down mountain Tabor, followed by his 10,000 men. And the Lord threw Sisera and all his chariot and the force into the panic before Barak. Sisera himself dismounted from his chariot and fled on foot. But Barak pursued the chariot and the army as far as Harosheth Hagoyim. The entire army of the Sisera fell beneath the sword, not even one man surviving. Sisera fled on foot to tent of the Jael, wife of the Heber the Kenite. For there was a peace between Jabin, king of the Hazor, and the family of the Heber the Kenite. Jael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Turn aside, my lord, turn aside with me, do not be afraid." So we went into her tent, and she covered him with a rock. He said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, I am thirsty." So she opened the skin of milk, gave me a drink, and then covered him. "Stand at the entrance of the tent," he said to her. "If anyone comes and asks, 'Is there someone here?' say no." Jael wiped up the helper, got tent back, and took a mallet in the hand. When Sisera was in a deep sleep from exhaustion, she approached him stealthily and drove the bag through his temple and down into the ground, and he died. Then, when Barak came in pursuit of the Sisera, Jael went out to meet with him and said to him, "Come, I'll show you the man you are looking for." So he went into with her, and there lay Sisera dead, with the tent bag through his temple. Thus on that day God humbled the Canaanite king Jabin before the Israelites. Their power weighed over heavier upon him, till at length they destroyed the Canaanite king Jabin. Judges chapter 5, Song of the Deborah. On that day Deborah sang this song, and Barak son of the Abinoam. When uprising broke out in Israel, when the people rallied for duty, bless the Lord. Hear, O king, give ear, O princes, I'll sing to the Lord, I'll make music to the Lord, the God of Israel. Lord, when you went out from Seir, when you marched from the plain of the Edom, the earth shook, the heavens poured, the clouds poured rain. The mountain streamed before the Lord, the one of the Sinai, before the Lord, the God of the Israel. In the day of the Shamgar, son of the Anas, in the day of the Jael, caravan ceased. Those who traveled the roads now traveled by round about the pass. Gone was a freedom beyond the words, gone indeed from Israel. When Deborah arose, when I arose, a mother in Israel. New gods were their choice, then war was at the gate. Now no shield was to be found, no spear among 40,000 in Israel. My heart is with the reed of the Israel, with the dedicated ones of the people. Bless the Lord. Those who ride on white donkeys, sit on cedar rocks, and those who travel the road, sing of them. To the sound of the musician at the wells, there they recount the just deed of the Lord. His just deeds bring freedom to Israel. Awake, awake, Deborah, awake, awake, strike a song, arise, Barak. Take captive your captors, son of the Abinoam. Then down went Israel against the mighty, the army of the Lord went down for him against the warriors. From Ephraim, their base in the valley behind you, Benjamin among your troops. From Machor came down commanders. From Zebulun, wielder of the martial staff. The prince of the Issachar war did Deborah, Issachar faithful to Barak. In the valley they followed at his heels. Among the clan of the Reuben, great were the searching of the heart. Why do you stay beside your horse, listening to the lowing of the horse? Among the clan of the Reuben, greater was the searching of the heart. Gilead stayed beyond the Jordan. Why did Dan spend his time in ships? Asher remained along the shore. He stayed in his healthfulness. Zebulun was a people who defied death, Naphtali too on the open height. The king came and fought. Then they fought those king of the Canaan. At Tanar, by the word of the Megiddo, no spoil of the silver did they take. From the heavens the stars fought, from their courses they fought against Sisera. Then Wadi Kishon swept them away, the Wadi overran them, the Wadi Kishon trampled down the strong. Then the hoofs of the horses hammered the galloping of steeds. Curse Meroz, says the messenger of the Lord, curse its inhabitant, for they did not come when the Lord helped, the help of the Lord against the warriors. Most blessed of the woman in Jael, the wife of the Hebron, the Kenite, blessed among the tent dwelling among women. He asked for water, she gave him milk. In princely bowl, she brought him coals. With her hand, she reached for the bag. With the right hand, the workman's hammer. She hammered the Sisera, crushed his head. She smashed, pierced his temple. At the feet he sank down, fell, lay still. Down at the feet he sank and fell. Where he sank down, there he fell slain. From the window she looked down. The mother of the Sisera peered through the lattice. Why is she chariot so long in coming? Why are the hoofbeat of the chariot delayed? The wisest of the princes answered her. She even replied to herself. They must be dividing the spoil they took, a slave woman and two for each man, spoil of dyed clothes of the Sisera, spoil of the onyx dyed clothes, a pair of the onyx dyed clothes for my neck in the spoil. So perish all your enemies, O Lord, but may those who love you be like the sun rising in its might. And the land was at rest for 40 years. Judges chapter 6, the call of the Gideon. The Israelites did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, who therefore delivered them into the power of the Midian for 7 years. So that Midian held Israel subject. From fear of the Midian, the Israelites made dens in the mountains, the caves, and the strongholds. For it used to be that whenever the Israelites had completed sowing their crops, Midian, Amalek, and the Gedimites would come up, encamp against them, and lay waste the produce of the land as far as the outskirts of the Gaza, leaving no sustenance in Israel, and no sheep, ox, or donkey. For they would come up with their livestock, and their tents would appear as thick as a locust. They would be too many to count when they came into the land to lay it waste. Israel was reduced to utter poverty by Midian, and so the Israelites cried out to the Lord. When Israel cried out to the Lord because of Midian, the Lord sent a prophet to the Israelites who said to them, Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, I am the one who brought you out from Egypt. I brought you out of the house of the slavery. I rescued you from the power of the Egypt and all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. And I say to you, the Lord am your God. You shall not fear the God of the Amorites, in whose land you are dwelling. But you did not listen to me. Then the messenger of the Lord came and sat on the terebinths in the Ophrah that belonged to the Joash the Abizraite. Joash's son Gideon was beating out within the winepress to save it from the Midianites. And the messenger of the Lord appeared to him and said, The Lord is with you, you mighty warriors. My Lord Gideon said to him, If the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are the wondrous deeds about which our ancestors told us when they said, Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? For now the Lord has abandoned us and has delivered us into the power of the Midian. The Lord turned to him and said, Go with the strength you have and save Israel from the power of the Midian. Is not I who sent you? But he answered him, Please, my Lord, how can I save Israel? My family is the poorest in Manasseh, and I am most insignificant in my father's house. The Lord said to him, I will be with you, and you will cut down Midian to the last man. He answered him, If you look on me with favor, give me a sign that you are the one speaking with me. Please do not depart from here until I come to you and bring out my offering and set it before you. He answered, I will await your return. So Gideon went up and prepared a young goat and the ephah of the flour in the form of the unleavened cakes, putting the meat in a basket and the broth in a pot. He he brought them out to him under terebinths and presented them. The messenger of God said to him, "Take the meat and unleavened cakes and lay them on this rock, then pour out the broth." When he had done so, the messenger of the Lord stretched out the tip of the staff he held. When he touched the meat and unleavened cakes, a fire came out from the rock and consumed the meat and unleavened cakes. Then the messenger of the Lord disappeared from sight. Gideon, now aware that it had been the messenger of the Lord, said, "Alas, Lord God, I have been messenger of the Lord face to face." The Lord answered him, "You are safe, do not fear, you shall not die." So Gideon built there an altar to the Lord and called it Yahweh Shalom. To this day it is still on Ophrah of the Abizrite. That same night the Lord said to him, "Take your father bull, the bull fattened for 7 years, and pull down your father's altar to the Baal. As for the Asherah beside it, cut it down. And build an altar to the Lord your God on the top of the stronghold with the pile of the wood. Then take the fattened bull and offer it as a whole burnt sacrifice on the wood from the Asherah you have cut down." So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord had commanded him. But he was too afraid of his family and of the townspeople to do it by day. He did it at night. Early the next morning, the townspeople found the altar of the Baal had been dismantled, the Asherah beside it cut down, and the fattened bull offered on the altar that was built. They asked one another who did this. They inquired and searched until they were told, "Gideon, son of Joash, did it." So the townspeople said to Joash, "Bring out your son that he may die, for he has dismantled the altar of the Baal and cut down the Asherahs that was beside it." But Joash replied to all who were standing around him, "Is it for you to take action for Baal or his savior? Anyone who takes action for him shall be put to death by morning. If he is God, let him act for himself, since his altar has been dismantled." So on that day, Gideon was called Jerubbaal because of the words, "Let Baal take action against him, since he dismantled his altar." Then all Midian and the Amalek and the Gideonite mustered and crossed over into the valley of the Jezreel, where they encamped. And Gideon was clothed with the Spirit of the Lord, and he blew the horn, summoning Abijah to follow him. He sent the messenger throughout Manasseh, and they too were summoned to follow him. He also sent the messenger throughout Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, and they advanced to meet the others. Gideon said to God, "If indeed you are going to save Israel through me, as you have said, I am putting this woolen fleece on the threshing floor, and if dew is on fleece alone, while all ground is dry, I shall know that you will save Israel through me, as you have said." That is what happened early the next morning. When he wrung out the fleece, he squeezed enough dew from it to fill a bowl. Gideon then said to God, "Do not be angry with me if I speak once more. Let me make just one more test with the fleece. Let the fleece alone be dry, but let there be dew on all the ground." That is what God did that night. The fleece alone was dry, but there was dew on all the ground. Judges chapter 7, Defeat of the Midian. Early the next morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, encamped by the spring of the Harod with all his soldiers. The camp of the Midian was north of him, beside the hill of the Moreh in the valley. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many soldiers with you for me to deliver Midian into their power, lest Israel vaunt itself against me and say, 'My own power saved me.'" So announce in the hearing of the soldiers, if anyone is afraid or fearful, let him leave. Let him depart from Mountain Gilead. 22,000 of the soldiers left, but 10,000 remained. The Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many soldiers. Lead them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. If I tell you that a certain man is to go with you, he must go with you, but no one is to go if I tell you he must not. When Gideon led the soldier down to the water, the Lord said to him, everyone who laps up the water as dog does with its tongue, you shall set aside by himself. And everyone who kneels down to drink, raising his hand to his mouth, you shall set aside by himself. Those who lapped up the water with their tongues numbered 300, but all the rest of the soldiers knelt down to drink the water. The Lord said to Gideon, by means of the 300 who lapped up the water, I will save you and deliver Midian into your power. So let all the other soldiers go home. They took up such a supply as the soldiers had with them, as well as their horns, and Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites to their tents, but kept the 300 men. Now the camp Midian was below him in the valley. That night the Lord said to Gideon, go, descend on the camp, for I will deliver it into your power. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your aide Purah, and listen to what they saying. After that, you will have courage to descend on the camp. So he went down with his aide Purah to the outpost of the armed men in the camp. The Midianite, the Amalekite, and all the Gideonites were lying in the valley, thick as a locust. Their camels could not be counted, for they were as many as the sands on the seashore. When Gideon arrived, one man was telling another about a dream. I had a dream, he said, that around the loaf of the barley bread was rolling into the camp of the Midian. It came to a certain tent and struck it and turned it upside down, and the tent collapsed. This can only be the sword of the Israelite, Gideon, son of Joash. The other replied, God has delivered the Midian and all the camp into his power. When Gideon heard the account of the dream and its exploration, he bowed down. Then returning to the camp of the Israel, he said, arise, for the Lord has delivered the camp of the Midian into your power. He divided the 300 men into three companies and provided them all with horns and with empty jars and the torches inside the jars. Watch me and follow my lead, he told them. I shall go to the edge of the camp, and as I do, you must do also. When I and those with me blow horns, you too must blow horns all around the camp and cry out for the Lord and for Gideon. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just after the posting of the guard. They blew the horns and broke the jars they were holding. When the three companies had blown their horns and broken their jars, they took the torches in their left hand, and in the right the horns they had been blowing, and cried out, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. They all remained standing in place around the camp, while the whole camp began to run and shout and flee. When they blew the 300 horns, the Lord set the sword up against another throughout the camp, and they fled as far as the Beth-Shemesh in the direction of the Zeradah, near the border of the Abel Melohah at the Tabas. The Israelites were called out from Naphtali, from Asher, and from all the Manasseh, and they pursued Midian. Gideon also sent a messenger throughout the mountain region of the Ephraim to say, go down to the intercept the Midian and seize the water courses against them as far as Beth-Barah, as well as Jordan. So all the Ephraimites were called to arms, and they seized the water courses as far as Beth-Barah and the Jordan as well. They captured the two princes of the Midian, Oreb and the Zeb, killing Oreb at the rock of the Oreb and the Zeb at the winepress of the Zeb. Then they pursued Midian, but they had the heads of the Oreb and the Zeb brought to the Gideon beyond the Jordan. Judges chapter 8. But the Ephraimites said to him, What have you done to us, not summoning us when you went to fight against Midian? And they quarreled bitterly with him. But he answered them, What have I done in comparison with you? Is not the grain of the Ephraim better than the vintage of the Abijah? It was into your power God delivered the prince of the Midian, Oreb and the Zeb. What have I been able to do in comparison with you? When he said this, their anger against him subsided. When Gideon reached the Jordan and crossed it, he and his 300 men were exhausted and famished. So he said to people of the Sukkot, Will you give my followers some loaf of the bread? They are exhausted, and I am pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, king of the Midian. But the prince of the Sukkot replied, Are the hands of the Zebah and the Zalmunna already in your possession, that would should give food to your army? Gideon said, Very well, when the Lord has delivered the Zebah and the Zalmunna into my power, I'll trash your body with the desert, the thorns, and the briars. He went up from there to the Penuel and made the same request of them. But the people of the Penuel answered him as had the people of the Sukkot. So to the people of the Penuel too he said, When I return in peace, I'll demolish this tower. Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Kakor with their force of about 15,000 men. These were all who were left of the whole Gideonite army. 120,000 swordmen having fallen. Gideon went up by the route of the tent dweller east of the Nobar and the Jokbebar and attacked the force when it felt secure. Zebah and Zalmunna fled and Gideon pursued them. He captured the king of the Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, terrifying the entire force. Then Gideon, son of the Joash, returned from the battle by the pass of the Heres. He captured a young man of the Sukkot and questioned him, and he wrote down for him the 77 princes and the elder of the Sukkot. So we went to the prince of the Sukkot and said, Here are the Zebah and the Zalmunna, with whom you taunt me. Are the hands of the Zebah and the Zalmunna already in your possession, that we should give food to your weary men? He seized the elder of the city, and with the desert, the thorn, and the briar, he thrashed the people of the Sukkot. He also demolished the tower of the Penuel and killed the people of the city. Then he said to Zebah and the Zalmunna, What about the men you killed at the Tabor? They were all like you, they replied. They appeared to be princes. There are many brothers, my mother's sons. He said, As the Lord lives, if you had spared their lives, I would not kill you. Then he said to his firstborn, Jethro, Go kill them. But the boy did not draw his sword, for he was afraid, for he was still a boy. Zebah and the Zalmunna said, Come kill us yourself, for as man is, so is his strength. So Gideon stepped forward and killed the Zebah and the Zalmunna. He also took the crescent that were on the neck of their camels. The Israelites then said to Gideon, Rule over us, you and your son and your son's son, for you saved us from the power of the Midian. But Gideon answered them, I will not rule over you, nor shall my son rule over you. The Lord must rule over you. Gideon went on to say, Let me make a recap of you. Give me each of you a ring from his spoils. Since they were Ishmaelites, the enemy had gold rings. We will certainly keep them, they replied, and they spread out the cloth into which everyone threw a ring from his spoils. The gold ring he had requested weighed 1,700 gold scores apart from the crescent and the pendant. the purple garment worn by the king of the Midian, and apart from the trapping that were on the neck of their camels. Gideon made an ephod out of the gold and placed it in his city. Ophrah or Israel prostituted themselves there, and it became a snare to Gideon and his household. Midian was brought into subjection by the Israelites. They no longer held their heads high, and the land had rested for the 40 years during the lifetime of the Gideon. Gideon's son Abimelech. Then Jerubbaal, son of the Joash, went to live in his house. Now Gideon had 70 sons, his own offspring, for he had many wives. His concubine who lived in the Shechem also bore him a son whom he named Abimelech. At a good old age, Gideon, son of the Joash, died and was buried in the tomb of the Joash, his father, in Ophrah of the Abizrite. But after Gideon was dead, the Israelites again prostituted themselves by following the Baals, making Baal bearers their god. The Israelites did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them from the power of their enemies all around them. Nor were they loyal to the house of the Jerubbaal, Gideon, for all the good he had done for Israel. Judges chapter 9. Abimelech, son of the Jerubbaal, went to his mother's kin in Shechem, and said to them and to the whole clan to which his mother's family belonged, "Put this question to all Lord of the Shechem, which is better for you, that 70 men, all Jerubbaal's sons, rule over you, and that one man rule over you. You must remember that I am your own flesh and bone." When his mother's kin repeated these words on his behalf to all the Lord of the Shechem, they set their hearts on Abimelech, thinking he is our king. They also gave him 70 pieces of the silver from the temple of the Baal-Berez, with which Abimelech hired the worthless men and the outlaws as his follows. He then went to his father's house in Ophrah and killed his brother and the 70th son of the Jerubbaal, one on one stone. Only the youngest son of the Jerubbaal, Jotham, escaped, for he was hidden. Then all the lord of the Shechem and all Beth Millo came together and made Abimelech king by the terebinths at the memorial pillar in Shechem. When this was reported to Jotham, he went and stood at the top of the mountain Gerizim and cried out in a louder voice, "Hear me, Lord of the Shechem, and may God hear you." One day the trees went out to anoint the king over themselves, so they said to the olive trees, "Reign over us." But the olive tree answered them, "Must I give up oil whereby God and the human being are honors, and go up to hold the sway over the trees?" Then the tree said to the fig tree, "Come, you reign over us." But a fig tree answered them, "Must I give up my sweetness and my sweet fruit, and go up to hold the sway over the trees?" Then the tree said to the vine, "Come, you reign over us." But the vine answered them, "Must I give up my wine that cheers God and human beings, and go up to hold the sway over the trees?" Then all the trees said to the buckthorns, "Come, you reign over us." But the buckthorn answered the trees, "If you are anointing me in good faith to make me king over you, come and take refuge in my shadow. But if not, let fire come from the buckthorns and devour the cedars of the Lebanon." Now then, if you act in good faith and integrity in appointing Abimelech your kings, if you have acted with goodwill toward Jerubbaal and his house, and if you have treated him as he deserved. For my father fought for you at the risk of his life when he delivered you from the power of the Midian. But you have risen against my father's house today and killed his 70th son upon one stone and made Abimelech, the son of his maidservant, the king over the lords of the Shechem, because he is your king. If then you have acted in good faith and integrity toward Jerubbaal and his house today, then rejoice in Abimelech, and may he in turn rejoice in you. But if not, let fire come forth from Abimelech and devour the Lord of the Shechem and the best mirror. And let fire come forth from the Lord of the Shechem and the best mirror and devour Abimelech. Then Jotham fled and escaped to Beer, where he remained for fear of his brother Abimelech. When Abimelech had ruled Israel for 3 years, God put an evil spirit between Abimelech and the Lord of the Shechem, and the Lord of the Shechem broke faith with the house of the Abimelech. This was the repeat of violence done to the 70 sons of the Jerubbaal, and to avenge their blood upon their brother Abimelech, who killed them, and upon the Lord of the Shechem, who encouraged him to kill his brothers. The lords of the Shechem then set men in ambush for him on the mountain tops, and they robbed all who passed them on the road. It was reported to the Abimelech. Now Gad, son of the Ebed, and his king came, and when they passed through the Shechem, the lords of Shechem put their trust in him. They went out into the fields, harvested grape for their vineyard, trod them out, and held a festival. Then they went to the temple of their God, where they ate and drank and crushed Abimelech. Gad, son of the Ebed, said, Who is Abimelech, and who is Shechem that should serve him? And do not son of the Jerubbaal and his lieutenant Jebul serve the man of the armor, father of the Shechem? So why should we serve him? Would that this troop were entrusted to my command, I would depose Abimelech. I would say to Abimelech, Get a large army and come out. When Jebul, the ruler of the city, heard what Gad, son of the Ebed, had said, he was angry, and sent a messenger to Abimelech in Arumah to say, Gad, son of Ebed, and his kin had come to Shechem and are stirring up the city against you. So take action tonight, you and the troops who are with you, and set the ambush in the fields. Promptly at sunrise tomorrow morning, make a raid on the city. When he and the troops who are with him come out against you, deal with him as best you can. During the night, the Abimelech went into the action with all his soldiers and set up an ambush outside of the Shechem in 4 companies. Gad, son of Ebed, went out and stood at the entrance of the city gate when Abimelech and his soldiers rose from their place of the ambush. Gad saw soldiers and said to Jebul, There are soldiers coming down from the mountain tops. But Jebul answered him, It is the shadow of the hills that you see as men. But Gad went on to say, Soldiers are coming down from the region of the Tabor Harez, and 1 company is coming by way on the Elon Meonims. Jebul said to him, Where now is your boast when you said, Who is Abimelech that we should serve him? Are these not the troops for whom you express contempt? Go out now and fight with them. So Gad went out at the head of the lord of the Shechem to fight against Abimelech. But when Abimelech went after him, he fled from him. Many fell slain right up to the entrance of the gate. Abimelech returned to Arumah, and Jebul drove Gad and his kin away so that they could no longer remain at Shechem. The next day, the army marched out into the field, and it was reported to the Abimelech. He divided the troop he had into 3 companies and set up an ambush in the fields. He watched until he saw the army leave the city and then went on to attack against them. Abimelech and the company with him rushed in and stood by entrance of the city gate, while the other 2 companies rushed upon all who were in the field and attacked them. That entire day, Abimelech fought against the city. He captured it, killed the people who were in it, and demolished the city itself, sowing it with salt. When they heard of this, all the lords of the Migdal Shechem went into the crypt of the temple of the El-Beres. It was reported to the Abimelech that all the lords of the Migdal Shechem were gathered together. So we went up the mountain Jalmon with all his soldiers, took his axe in his hand, and cut down some brushwood. This he lifted to his shoulder, then said to troop with him, Hurry, do just as you have seen me do. So all the soldiers likewise cut down bushy wood, and following Abimelech placed it against the crypt. Then they set the crypt on fire over them, so that every one of the people of the Migdal Shechem, about 1,000 men and women, perished. Abimelech proceeded to Thebez, encamped and captured it. Now there was a strong tower in the middle of the city, and all the men and women and all the lords of the city fled there, shutting themselves in and going up to the roof of the tower. Abimelech came up to the tower and fought against it. When he came close to the entrance of the tower to set it on fire, a certain woman cast the upper part of the millstone down on the Abimelech's head, and it fractured his skull. He immediately called his armor-bearer and said to him, "Draw your sword and put me to death, so they will not say about me, 'A woman killed him,' so he intended to ran him through, and he died." When the Israelites saw that Abimelech was dead, they all left for their homes. Thus did God repay the evil that Abimelech had done to his father in killing his 70 brothers. God also brought all the wickedness of the people of the Shechem back on their heads, for the curse of the Jotham, son of the Jerubbaal, overtook them. Judges chapter 10, Torah. After Abimelech, Tola, son of the Buah, son of the Dodo, a man of the Issachar, rose up to save Israel. He lived in the Shamir in the mountain region of the Ephraim. When he had judged Israel 23 years, he died and was buried in Shamir. Jair the Gileadite came after him and judged Israel 22 years. He had 30 sons who rode on 30 donkeys and possessed 30 cities in the land of the Gilead. These are called the Havos Jair to the present day. Jair died and was buried in Carmos, oppression by the Ammonites. The Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, serving the Baals and the Ashtaroth, the god of the Aram, the god of the Sidon, the god of the Moab, the god of the Ammonite, and the god of the Philistines, since they had abandoned the Lord and would not serve him. The Lord became angry with Israel. He sold them into power of the Philistines and the Ammonites. For 18 years they afflicted and oppressed the Israelites in Bashan and all the Israelites in the Amorite, the land beyond the Jordan in Gilead. The Ammonites also crossed the Jordan to fight against Judah, Benjamin, and the house of the Ephraim, so that Israel was in great distress. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord, "We have sinned against you, for ye have abandoned our God and served the Baal." The Lord answered the Israelites, "Did not the Egyptian, the Amorite, the Ammonite, the Philistine, the Sidonians, the Amalekite, and the Midianite oppress you? Yet when you cry out to me, and I save you from their power, you still abandon me and serve other gods, therefore I will save you no more. Go and cry out to the God you have chosen, let them save you in your time of the distress." But the Israelites said to the Lord, "We have sinned, do not us whatever is good in your sight, only deliver us this day." And they cast out the foreign god from their midst and served the Lord, so that he grieved over the misery of the Israel. The Ammonites were called out for war and encamped in Gilead, while the Israelites assembled and encamped at Mizpah. The captain of the army of the Gilead said to one another, "The one who begins the war against the Ammonites shall be rid of all the inhabitants of Gilead." Judges chapter 11. Jephthah. Jephthah the Gileadite was a warrior. He was the son of the prostitute, fathered by Gilead. Gilead's wife had also borne him sons. When they grew up, the sons of the wife had driven Jephthah away, saying to him, "You shall inherit nothing in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman." So Jephthah had fled from his brother and taken up residence in the land of the Tob. What rich man had joined the company with him and went out with him on a race? Some time later, the Ammonites went to the war with Israel. As soon as the Ammonites were at war with Israel, the elder of the Gilead went to bring Jephthah from land up top. Come, they said to Jephthah, be our commander so that we can fight the Ammonites. Are you not the ones who hate me and drove me from my father's house? And Jephthah replied to the elder of the Gilead, why do you come to me now when you are in distress? The elder of the Gilead said to Jephthah, this is the reason we have come back to you now. If you go with us to fight against the Ammonites, you shall be rid of all of the inhabitants of the Gilead. Jephthah answered the elder of the Gilead, if you bring me back to fight against the Ammonites and the Lord delivers them up to me, I will be your leader. The elder of the Gilead said to Jephthah, the Lord is witness between us that will do as you say. So Jephthah went with the elder of the Gilead, and the army made him their leader and the commanders. Jephthah gave all his orders in the presence of the Lord in Mizpah. Then he sent a messenger to the king of the Ammonites to say, what did you have against me that you come fight with me in my land? The king of the Ammonites answered the messenger of the Jephthah, Israel took away my land from Arnon to the Jabbok and the Jordan when they came up from Egypt, now restore it peaceably. Again, Jephthah sent a messenger to the king of the Ammonites, saying to him, this is what Jephthah says, Israel did not take the land of the Moab on the land of the Ammonites. For when they came out from Egypt, Israel went through the wilderness to the Red Sea and came to Kadesh. Israel then sent a messenger to the king of the Edom, saying, let me pass through your land. But the king of Edom did give the consent. They also sent to king of the Moab, but he too was unwilling, so Israel remained in Kadesh. Then they went through the wilderness, and bypassing the land of the Edom, the land of the Moab, they arrived east of the land of the Moab and encamped across the Arnon. Thus they did not enter the territory of the Moab, for Arnon is the boundary of Moab. Then Israel sent a messenger to the Amorite king Sihon, who was king of the Heshbon. Israel said to him, let me pass through your land to my own place. But Sihon refused to let Israel pass through his territory. He gathered all his soldiers, and they encamped at the Jahaz and fought Israel. But the Lord, the God of Israel, delivered Sihon and his entire army into the power of the Israel, who defeated them and occupied all the land of the Amorites who live in that region. They occupied all of the Amorite territory from the Arnon to the Jabbok and the wilderness to the Jordan. Now then it was the Lord, the God of Israel, who dispossessed the Amorite for his people, Israel, and you are going to dispossess them? Should you not take possession of that which you God mercy gave you to the possess, and should we not take possession of all that the Lord our God has dispossessed for us? Now then, are you any better than Balak, son of the Zippor, king of the Moab? Did he ever quarrel with Israel and make war against them? Israel has dwelt in Heshbon and its villages, Aroer and its villages, and all the cities on the bank of the Arnon for 100 years. Why did you not recover them during that times? As for me, I am not sinned against you, but you wrong me by making war against me. Let the Lord who is judge decide this day between the Israelites and the Ammonites. But the king of the Ammonites paid no heed to message Jephthah sent him. Jephthah vowed. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah. He passed through Gilead and Manasseh, and through the Mizpah of the Gilead as well. As from Mizpah of the Gilead, he crossed over against the Ammonite. Jephthah made a vow to the Lord, "If you deliver the Ammonite into my power," he said, "whoever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return from the Ammonite in peace shall belong to the Lord. I shall offer him up as a burnt offering." Jephthah then crossed over against the Ammonite to fight against them, and the Lord delivered them into his power. He inflicted a very severe defeat on them from Aroer to the approach of the Minis, 20 cities in all, and as far as Abel-Keramim. So the Ammonites were brought into subjection by the Israelites. When Jephthah returned to his house in Mizpah, it was the daughter who came out to meet him with the tambourine playing and dancing. She was his only child. He had neither son nor daughter beside her. When he saw her, he threw his garment and said, my daughter, you have struck me down and brought a calamity upon me. For I have made a vow to the Lord, and I cannot take it back." "Father," she replied, you have made a vow to the Lord. "Do with me as you have vowed, because the Lord has taken vengeance for you against your enemy, the Ammonite." Then she said to her father, "Let me have this favor. Do nothing for 2 months, that I and my companion may go wander in the mountain to weep for my virginity." "Go," he replied, and sent her away for 2 months. So she departed with her companion and wept for her virginity in the mountains. At the end of 2 months, she returned to her father, and he did to her as he had vowed. She had not had a relation with any man. It became a custom in Israel for Israelite woman to go yearly to mourn to daughter of the Jephthah the Gileadite for 4 days of the years. Judges chapter 12, the Shibboleth incident. The men of the Ephraim were called out, and they crossed over the Japhon. They said to Jephthah, "Why do you go to fight with the Ammonite without calling us to go with you? We will burn your house on top of you." Jephthah answered them, "My soldier and I were engaged in contest with the Ammonite. They were pressing us hard, and I cried out to you, but you did not come save me from their power. When I saw that you were not coming to save me, I took my life in my own hand and crossed over against the Ammonite, and the Lord delivered them into my power. Why then should you come up against me this day to fight with me?" Then Jephthah gathered together all the men of the Gilead and fought against Ephraim. The men of the Gilead defeated the Ephraim. And the Gilead seized the fords of the Jordan against Ephraim. When any of the fleeing Ephraimites said, "Let me pass," the men of the Gilead would say to him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" If he answered no, they would ask him to say Shibboleth. If he said Shibboleth, not pronouncing it exactly right, they would seize him and kill him at the fords of the Jordan. 42,000 Ephraimites fell at that time. Jephthah judged Israel for 6 years, and Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in the city in Gilead, Ibzan. After him, Ibzan of the Bethlehem judged Israel. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters whom have given in marriage outside the family, while bringing in 30 wives for his sons from outside the family. He judged Israel for 7 years. Ibzan died and was buried in Bethlehem. Elon. After him, Elon the Zebulunite judged Israel. He judged Israel for 10 years. Elon the Zebulunite died and was buried at the Aizalon in the land of the Zebulun. Abdon. After him, Abdon, son of the Hilal, the Pirathonite, judged Israel. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on the 70 donkeys. He judged Israel for 8 years. Abdon, son of the Hilal, the Pirathonite, died and was buried in the Pirathon in the land of the Ephraim in the mountain region of the Amalekites. Judges chapter 13, the birth of the Samson. The Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, who therefore delivered them into power of the Philistines for 40 years. There was a certain man from Jorah of the clan of the Danites, whose name was Manoah. His wife was barren and had borne no children. An angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, "Though you are barren and have had no children, you will conceive and bear a son. Now then, be careful to drink no wine or beer and to eat nothing unclean. For you will conceive and bear a son, no razor shall touch his head, for the boy is to be a Nazirite for God from the womb. It is he who will begin to save Israel from the power of the Philistines." The woman went and told her husband, "A man of the God came to me. He had the appearance of the angel of the God. Fearsome indeed, I did not ask him where he came from, nor did he tell me his name. But he said to me, you will conceive and bear a son, so drink no wine or beer, and eat nothing unclean, for the boy shall be a Nazirite for God from the womb, until the day of his death." Manoah then prayed to the Lord, "Please, my Lord," he said, "may the man of God whom you sent return to us to teach us what to do for the boy who is to be born." God heard the prayer of the Manoah, and the angel of the God came again to woman as she was sitting in the field, but her husband, the Manoah, was not with her. The woman ran quickly and told the husband, "The man who came to me the other day has appeared to me," she said to him. So Manoah got up and followed his wife. When he reached the man, he said to him, "Are you the one who spoke to my wife?" "I am," he answered. Then Manoah asked, "Now when what you say comes true, what rules must the boy follow? What must he do?" The angel of the Lord answered Manoah, "Your wife must be careful about all the things of which I spoke to her. She must not eat anything that comes from the vine. She must not drink wine or beer, and she must not eat anything unclean. Let her observe all that I have commanded her." Then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "Permit us to detain you so that we may prepare a young goat for you." But the angel of the Lord answered Manoah, "Though you detained me, I would not eat your food. But if you want to prepare a burnt offering, then offer it up to the Lord." For Manoah did not know that he was the angel of the Lord. Then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name, that we may honor you when your words come true?" The angel of the Lord answered him, "Why did you ask my name? It is wondrous." Then Manoah took a young goat with a grain offering and offered it on the rock to the Lord, who works wonders, while Manoah and his wife were looking on. As the flame rose to the heavens from the altar, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell on their face to the ground. But the angel of the Lord was seen no more by Manoah and his wife. Then Manoah realized that it was the angel of the Lord. Said to his wife, "He will certainly die, for he has seen God." But his wife said to him, "If the Lord had meant to kill us, he would not have accepted the burnt offering and the grain offering from our hands, nor would he have let us see all this or hear what he had heard." The woman bore a son and named him Samson, and when the boy grew up, the Lord blessed him. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him for the first time in the Mahane between Jorah and Eshtaol. Judges chapter 14, marriage of the Samson. Samson went down to the Timnah where he saw one of the Philistine women. On his return, he told his father and mother, I saw in Timnah a woman of Philistine. Get her for me as a wife. His father and mother said to him, Is there no woman among your kinfolk and among all your people, that you must go and take a woman from the uncircumcised Philistine? But Samson answered his father, Get her for me, for she is the one I want. Now his father and mother did not know that this had been brought about by the Lord, who was seeking an opportunity against the Philistine. For at that time they ruled over Israel. So Samson went down to the Timnah with his father and mother. When he turned aside to the vineyard of the Timnah, a young lion came rowing out toward him. But the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon Samson, and he tore the lion apart bare-handed, as one tears a young goat, without telling his father and mother what he had done. He went down and spoke to the woman he liked her. Later, when he came back to marry her, he turned aside to look at the remains of the lion. And there was a swarm of the bees in the lion's carcass and honey. So he scooped the honey out into hands and ate it as he went along. When he came to his father and mother, he gave them some to eat, but he did not tell them that he had scooped the honey from the lion's carcass. His father also went down to the woman, and Samson gave the feast there, since it was customary for the young men to do this. Out of their fear of him, they brought the 30 men to be his companions. Samson said to them, Let me propose a riddle to you. If within the 7 days of the feast you serve it for me, I'll give you 30 linen tunic and 30 sets of garments. But if you cannot answer it for me, you must give me 30 tunic and 30 set of the garment. Propose your riddle. Daddy responded, and we will listen to it. So he said to them, Out of the eater came food, out of the strong came sweetness. For 3 days they were unable to answer the riddle. The Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and he went down to the Ashkelon, where he killed 30 of their men and stripped them. He gave their garment to those who had answered the riddle. Then he went out to his own family in anger. As Samson sighed, his wife wept and said, You must hate me, you do not love me, for you have proposed a riddle to my countrymen, but have not told me the answer. He said to her, If I have not told it even to my father or my mother, must I tell it to you? But she wept beside him during the 7 days the feast lasted. On the 17th day, since she importuned him, he told her the answer, and she explained the riddle to her countrymen. On the 7th day, before the sun set, the men of the city said to him, What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? He replied to them, If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to the Ashkelon, where he killed 30 of their men and despoiled them. He gave their garment to those who had answered the riddle. Then he went out to his own family in anger. And Samson's wife was married to the companion who had been his best man. Judges chapter 15, Samson defeated the Philistine. After some time, in the region of the wheat harvest, Samson fished his wife, bring a young goat. But when he said, Let me go into my wife's room, her father would not let him go in. He said, I thought you hate her, so I gave her to your best man. Her younger sister is better. You may have her instead. Samson said to him, This time I am guiltless if I harm the Philistine. So Samson went and caught 300 jackals, and turning them tail to tail, he took some torches and tied one between each pair of the tails. He then kindled the torches and set the jackals loose in the standing grain of the Philistine, thus bring both shock and the standing grain, the vineyard and the olive groves. When the Philistines asked who has done this, they were told, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because his wife was taken and given to his best man. So the Philistines went up and destroyed her and her family by fire. Samson said to them, If this is how you act, I will not stop until I have taken revenge on you. And he struck them hip and died a great slaughter. Then he went down and stayed in cleft of the crack of the Etam. The Philistines went up and encamped in the Judah, deploying themselves against the Lehi. When the men of the Judah asked, Why have you come up against us? They answered, To take Samson prisoners, to do to him as he has done to us. 3,000 men of the Judah went down to the cleft of the crack of the Etam and said to Samson, Do you not know that the Philistines are your rulers? Why then have you done this to us? He answered them, As they had done to me, so have I done to them. They said to him, We have come down to bind you and deliver you to the Philistines. Samson said to them, Swear to me that you will not attack me yourselves. No, they replied, We will only bind you and hand you over to them. We will certainly not kill you. So they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the crack. When he reached the Lehi and the Philistine came shouting to meet him, the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him. The ropes around his arm became like a flax that is consumed by fire, and his bones melted away from his hands. Coming upon the fresh jawbone of an ass, he reached out, grasped it, and with it carried 1,000 men. Then Samson said, With jawbone of an ass I will pile them in a heap. With the jawbone of the ass I will slain 1,000 men. As he had finished speaking, he threw the jawbone from him, and so that place was named Ramath Lehi. Being very thirsty, he cried to the Lord and said, You have put this great victory into the hand of your servant. Must I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised? Then God spread the calvert in the Lehi, and water issued from it. And Samson drank till his spirit returned and he revived. Hence it is called En-Hakkol in Lehi to this day. Samson judged Israel for 20 years in the day of the Philistines. Judges chapter 16. When Samson went to Gaza, where he saw the prostitute and visited her, the people of Gaza was told, Samson has come here. And they surrounded him with an ambush at the city gate all night long. And all the night they waited, saying, At the morning light we will kill him. Samson lay there until midnight. Then he rose at midnight, seized the door of the city gate and the 2 gate posts, and tore them loose, bar and all. He hoisted them on his shoulder and carried them to the top of the ridge opposite Hebron. Samson and Delilah. After that, he fell in love with the woman in the Wadi Sorag, whose name was Delilah. The Lord of the Philistines came up to her and said, Trick him and find out where he gets his great strength, and how he may overcome and bind him so as to make him helpless. Then for our part we will each give you 1,100 pieces of the silver. So Delilah said to Samson, Tell me where you get your great strength and how you may be bound so as to be made helpless. If they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not dried, Samson answered her, I shall grow weaker and be like anyone else. So the lords of the Philistines brought her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not dried, and she bound him with them. She had men lying in wait in the room, and she said to him, The Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he snapped the bowstring as the thread of the towel is snapped by the whip or a flame. and his strength remained unexplained. Delilah said to Samson, "You have mocked me and told me lies. Now tell me how you may be bound." "If they bound me tight with new ropes with which no work has been done," he answered her, "I shall grow weaker and be like anyone else." So Delilah took new rope and bound him with them. Then she said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." For there was a man lying in wait in the room, but he snapped the rope of his arms like a thread. Delilah said to Samson again, "Up to now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me how you may be bound." He said to her, "If you weave the 7 locks of my hair into web and fasten them with the pin, I shall grow weaker and be like anyone else." So when he went to bed, Delilah took the 7 locks of the hair and wove them into the web, and fastened them with the pins. Then she said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." Awaking from his sleep, he pulled out both the loom and the web. Then she said to him, "How can you say, 'I love you,' when your heart is not mine? 3 times already you may have mocked me and not told me where you get your great strength." She pressed him continually and pestered him till he was deathly weary of it. So he told her all that was in his heart and said, "No razor has touched my head, for I have been a Nazarite from my mother's womb. If I shaved, my strength will leave me, and I shall grow weaker and be like anyone else." When Delilah realized that he had told her all that was in his heart, she summoned the Lord of the Philistines, saying, "Come up this time, for he has told me all that is in his heart." So the Lord of the Philistines came to her and brought the money with them. She put him to sleep on her lap and called for a man who shaved up the 7 locks of his hair. He immediately became helpless, for his strength had left him. When she said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson," he woke from his sleep and thought, "I'll go out as I've done time and again and shake myself free." He did not realize that the Lord had left him. But the Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes. Then they brought him down to Gaza and bound him with the bronze fetters, and he was put to grinding grain in the prison. But the hair of his head began to grow as soon as it was shaved. The death of Samson. The Lord of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to their god Dagon and to celebrate. They said, "Our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our power." When the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, "Our God is delivered into our power, our enemy, the ravager of our land, the one who has multiplied our slain." When the spirits were high, they said, "Call Samson that he may amuse us." So they called Samson from the prison, and he provided amusement for them. They made him stand between the columns. And Samson said to the attendant who was holding his hand, "Put me where I may touch the columns that support the temple, so that I may lean against them." The temple was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there, and from the roof about 3,000 men and women looked on as Samson provided amusement. Samson cried out to the Lord and said, "Lord God, remember me, strengthen me only this once, that I may avenge myself on the Philistines at one blow for my 2 eyes." Samson grasped the 2 middle columns on which the temple rested and braced himself against them, one at his right, the other at his left. Then saying, "Let me die with the Philistines," Samson pushed hard, and the temple fell upon the lords and all the people who were in it. Those he killed by his dying were more than those he had killed during his lifetime. His kinsmen and all his father's house went down and bore him up for burial in the grave of Manoah his father, between Jorah and Ashtaroth. He had judged Israel for 20 years. Judges chapter 17, Micah and Levite. There was a man from mountain region of the Ephraim whose name was Micah. He said to his mother, "The 1,100 pieces of the silver that was taken from you, about which you pronounced the course and even set it in my hearing. I have that silver, I took it, so now I'll restore it to you." Then his mother said, "May my son be blessed by the Lord." When he restored the 1,100 pieces of the silver to his mother, she said, "I consecrate the silver to the Lord from my own hand on the behalf of my son to make an idol overlaid with silver." So when he restored the silver to his mother, she took 200 pieces and gave them to the silversmith, who made them an idol overlaid with silver, so it remained in the house of the Micah. The man Micah had a shrine, and he made an ephod and a teraphim, and installed one of his sons who became his priest. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. There was a young man from Bethlehem of the Judah, from the clan of the Judah. He was a Levite residing there. The man set out from the city Bethlehem of Judah to take a residence wherever he could have found a place. On his journey he came into a mountain region of the Ephraim, as far as the house of the Micah. "Where do you come from?" Micah asked him. He answered him, "I am Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, and I am on my way to take a residence wherever I can find a place." "Stay with me," Micah said to him. "Be a father and priest to me, and I'll give you 10 silver pieces a year, a set of garments, and your living." He praised the Levite. And he agreed to stay with the man. The young man became like one of his own sons. Micah installed the Levite, and the young man became his priest, remaining in the house of the Micah. Then Micah said, "Now I know that the Lord will prosper me, since I have the Levite as my priest." Judges chapter 18, Migration of the Danite. In those days there was no king in Israel. In those days the tribe of the Danite were in search of the heritage to dwell in, for up to that time no heritage had been allotted to them among the tribes of the Israel. So the Danites sent from their clan 5 powerful men of the Jorah and the Ashtaroth to reconnoiter the land and scout it. "Go scout the land," they were told. They went into the mountain region of the Ephraim, and they spent the night there. While they were near the house of the Micah, they recognized the voice of the young Levite, so they turned aside. They asked him, "Who brought you here? What are you doing here? What is your interest here?" "This is what the Micah has done for me," he replied to them. "He has hired me, and I have become his priest." They said to him, "Consult God that we may know whether the journey we are making will lead to success." The priest said to them, "Go in peace. The journey you are making is under the eye of the Lord." So the 5 men went on and came to Laish. They saw the people there living securely after the manner of the Sidonians, quiet and trusting, with no lack of any natural resources. They were distant from the Sidonians and had no dealing with the Arameans. When the 5 returned to kin in the Jorah and the Ashtaroth, they were asked, "What do you have to report?" They replied, "Come, let us attack them, for we have seen the land and it was very good. Are you going to hesitate? Do not be slow to go in and take possession of the land. When you go, you will come to trusting people. The land stretches out in both directions, and God has indeed given it into your power, a place where no natural resource is lacking." So 600 of the clan of the Danite, the men armed with the weapon of the war, set out from Jorah and Ashtaroth. They marched up into Judah and encamped near Kiriath-Jearim. For this reason, the place is called Mahanaim Dan to this day. It lies west of the Kiriath-Jearim. From there, they passed on into the mountain region of the Ephraim and camped to the house of the Micah. Then the 5 men who had gone to reconnoiter the land spoke up and said to their kindred, "Do you know that in these houses there are on ephod, teraphim, and the idol overlaid with silver? Now decide what you must do." So turning in that direction, they went to the house of the young Levite at the home of Micah and greeted him. The 600 Danites stationed themselves at the entrance of the gate, armed with the weapon of the war. The 5 men who had gone to reconnoiter the land went out and entered the house of the Micah with the priest standing there. They took the idol, the ephod, and the teraphim, and the metal image. When the priest said to them, "What are you doing?" they said to him, "Be still, put your hand over your mouth, come with us and be our father and priest. Is it better for you to be priest for the family of the one man, or to be priest for the tribe and the clan in Israel?" The priest agreeing took the ephod, the teraphim, and the idol, and went along with the troops. As they turned to depart, they placed their little ones, their livestock, and their goods at the head of the column. When the Danites had gone some distance from the house of the Micah and the men in the houses nearby mustered and overtook them. They called to the Danite, who turned and said to Micah, "What do you want that you have called this muster? You have taken my God, which I made for myself, and you have gone up with my priest as well." He answered, "What is left for me? How then can you ask me, what do you want?" The Danite said to him, "Do you let your voice be heard near us, or a aggravated man will attack you, and you will have fortified your life and the lives of your family." Then the Danite went on their ways, and Micah, seeing that they were too strong for him, turned back and went home. Having taken what Micah had made and his priest, they marched against Laish, quiet and trusting people. They put them to the sword and destroyed the city by fire. No one came to their aid, since the city was far from Sidon, and they had no dealing with the Arameans. The city was in the valley that belonged to the Beth-Rehob. The Danites then rebuilt the city and occupied it. They named it Dan after their ancestor Dan, who was born to Israel, but Laish was the name of the city of formerly. The Danites set up the idol for themselves, and Jonathan, son of the Gershon, son of the Moses, and his descendants were priests for the tribe of the Danite until the time the land went into captivity. They maintained the idol Micah had made as long as the house of the God was in Shiloh. Judges chapter 19. The Levite from Ephraim. In those days, when there was no king in Israel, there was a Levite residing in a remote part of the mountain region of the Ephraim, who had taken for himself a concubine from Bethlehem of Judah. But this concubine spurned him and left him for her father's house in Bethlehem of the Judah, where she stayed for some 4 months. Her husband then set out with his servant and a pair of the donkeys and went after her to soothe her and bring her back. He arrived at her father's house, and when the young woman's father saw him, he came out joyfully to meet him. His father-in-law, the young woman's father, urged him to stay, and so he spent 3 days eating and drinking and passing the night there. On the first day, they rose early in the morning, and he prepared to go. But the young woman's father said to his son-in-law, "Fortify yourself with a little food. You can go later on." So they stayed, and the two men ate and drank together. Then the young woman's father said to her husband, "Why not decide to spend the night here and enjoy yourself?" The man made the move to go, but when his father-in-law pressed him, he went back and spent the night there. On the fifth morning, he rose early to depart, but the young woman's father said, "Fortify yourself." He coaxed him, and he tarried until the afternoon, and the two of them ate. Then when the husband was let to go with the concubine and servant, the young woman's father said to him, "See, the day is wearing on toward the evening. Stay for the night. See, the day is coming to an end. Spend the night here and enjoy yourself. Earlier tomorrow you can start your journey home." The man, however, refused to stay another night. He and his concubine set out with a pair of the saddled donkeys and traveled until they came opposite the Jebus, which is Jerusalem. Since they were near Jebus with they far gone, the servant said to his master, "Come, let us turn out to this city of the Jebusite and spend the night in it." But his master said to him, "We will not turn out to a foreign city where there are no Israelites. We will go on to Gibeah." "Come," he said to his servant, "let us make for some other place and spend the night in either Gibeah or Ramah." So they continued on their way until the sun set on them when they were opposite the Gibeah of the Benjamin. There they turned out to enter Gibeah for the night. The men went in and sat down in the town square, but no one took them inside to spend the night. In the evening, however, an old man came from his work in the field. He was from the mountain region of the Ephraim, though he was living in the Gibeah, where the local people were Benjaminites. When he noticed the trouble in the town square, the old man asked, "Where are you going and where have you come from?" He said to him, "We are traveling from Bethlehem of Judah far up into the mountain region of the Ephraim. Where I am from, I have been to Bethlehem of the Judah, and now I am going home, but no one has taken me into his house. We have straw and fodder for our donkeys, and the bread and the wine for myself and for your maidservant and the young man who is with your servant. There is nothing else we need." Rest assured, the old man said to him, "I will provide for all your needs, but do not spend the night in the public square." So he led them to his house and mixed the fodder for the donkeys. Then they washed their feet and ate and drank the arteries at the Gibeah. While they were enjoying themselves, the men of the city, a bunch of the scoundrels, surrounded the house of the beat on the door. They said to the old man who was the owner of the house, "Bring out the man who has come into your house, so that we may get intimate with him." The man who was the owner of the house went out to them and said, "No, my brother, do not be so wicked. This man has come into my house. Do not commit this terrible crime. Instead, let me bring out my virgin daughter and this man's concubine. Humiliate them and do whatever you want, but against him do not commit such a terrible crime." But the man would not listen to him, so the man seized his concubine and thrust her outside to them. They raped her and abused her all night until morning, and let her go as the sun was coming up. At the approach of the morning, the woman came and collapsed at the entrance of the house in which her husband was, and lay there until morning. When her husband rose in the morning and opened the door of the house to start out again on his journey, there was the woman, his concubine, collapsed at the entrance of the house with her hand on the threshold. "Come, let us go," he said to her, but there was no answer. So the man placed her on a donkey and started out again for home. On reaching home, he got a knife and took hold of the body of his concubine. He cut her up limb by limb into 12 pieces and sent them throughout the territory of Israel. He instructed the men whom he sent, "Thus you shall say to all the men of the Israel, has such a thing ever happened from the day the Israelites came up from the land of the Egypt to this day? Take note of it, form a plan and give orders." Judges chapter 20, Assembly of the Israelites. So all the Israelites came out as one from Dan to Beersheba, including the land of the Gilead, and assembly gathered to the Lord at Mizpah. The leader of all the people, all the staff bearer of the Israel, presented themselves in assembly of the people of the God, 400,000 of foot soldiers who carried swords. Meanwhile, the Benjaminites heard that the Israelites had gone up to Mizpah. The Israelites asked, "How did these evil things happen?" And the Levite, the husband of the murdered woman, testified, "It was at the Gibeah of the Benjamin, which my concubine and I had entered up for the night. The lords of the Gibeah rose up against me and surrounded me in the house at night. I was the one they intend to kill, but they abused my concubine and she died. So I took my concubine and cut her up and sent her through every part of the territory of Israel because of the terrible things they had done in Israel. So now all your Israelites, give your judgment and consult in this matter." All the people rose as one to say, "None of us will leave for our tent or return to our home. Now as for Gibeah, this is what we will do. We will go up against it by a lot, taking from all the tribe of the Israel 10 men for every 100, 100 for every 1,000, 1,000 for every 10,000, and procuring supply for the soldier who will go to exact from Gibeah of the Benjamin the full measure of the terrible things it committed in Israel." So all the men of the Israel gathered against the city, united as one. The tribe of Israel sent men throughout the tribe of the Benjamin to say, "What is this evil that was occurred among you? Now give up the men, the scoundrels who are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and thus purge the evil from Israel." But Benjaminites refused to listen to their kindred, the Israelites. Instead, the Benjaminites assembled from their city at the Gibeah to march out to the battle with the Israelites. On that day, the Benjaminites mustered from their city 26,000 swordmen in addition to the inhabitants of the Gibeah, who mustered 700 picked men, who were left-handed, every one of them able to sling a stone at her hair without missing. The men of the Israel without the Benjamin mustered 400,000 swordmen out of men warriors. They went up to the battle and consulted God. When the Israelites asked, "Who shall go first for us to the battle with the Benjaminites?" the Lord said, "Judah first." The Israelites rose in the morning and encamped against the Gibeah. War in Benjamin. The men of the Israel marched out to the battle with the Benjamin and drew up in the battle array against them at the Gibeah. The Benjamites marched out of the Gibeah that day and felled the 22,000 men of the Israel. But the army of the men of the Israel took courage and again drew out for battle in the place where they had drawn up on the previous day. Then the Israelites went up and wept before the Lord until evening. "Shall I again engage you, my brother Benjamin, in battle?" They asked the Lord, and the Lord answered the attack. When the Israelites drew near to the Benjaminites on the second day, Benjamin marched out of the Gibeah against them again and fell 18,000 Israelites, all of them swordsmen. So the anti-Israelite army went up and entered the battle where they sat weeping before the Lord. They fasted that day until evening and presented the burnt offering and the communion offering before the Lord. The Israelites consulted the Lord, for the ark of the covenant of the Lord was there in those days. And Phinehas, son of Elijah, son of Aaron, was standing in his presence in those days, and asked, "Shall I again go out to battle with my brother Benjamin, or shall I stop?" The Lord said, "Attack, for tomorrow I'll deliver him into your power." So Israel set men in ambush around Gibeah. When the Israelites went up against the Benjaminites on third day, they drew up against Gibeah as on other occasions. When the Benjaminites marched out to meet the army, they began, as on other occasion, to strike down some of the troops along the highways, one of which goes up to Bethel and one to Gibeah in the open country. About 30 Israelites were slain. The Benjaminites thought they were looted before us as previously. The Israelites, however, were thinking, "We'll flee," and drew them out from the city onto the highways. And then all the men of the Israel rose from their place, forming up the Baal Tamar, and the Israelites in ambush rushed from their place west of the Gibeah, and advanced against Gibeah with 10,000 picked men from all Israel. The fighting was severe, but no one knew that a disaster was closing in. The Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel, and on that day the Israelites killed 25,100 men of the Benjamin, all of them swordsmen. Then the Benjaminites saw that they were defeated. The men of the Israel gave ground to the Benjamin, trusting in the ambush they had set at Gibeah. Then the men in ambush, having made the sudden dash against Gibeah, marched in and put the whole city to the sword. The arrangement the men of Israel had with the men in ambush was that they would send up the smoke signal from the city, and the men of Israel would then wheel about in a battle. Benjamin, having begun by killing out some 30 of the men of the Israel, thought, "Surely they are completely routed before us, as in the early fighting." But when the signal, the column of the smoke, began to rise up from the city, Benjamin looked back, and there was a whole city going up in smoke toward heaven. Then, when the men of Israel wheeled about, the men of Benjamin were thrown into the confusion, for they realized that distress was closing in on them. They retreated before the men of Israel in the direction of the wilderness, but the fighting kept pace with them, and those who had been in the city were spreading destruction in between. They surrounded the men of the Benjamin, pursued them from Noah, and drove them along to the point east of the Gibeah. 18,000 from Benjamin fell, all of them warriors. They turned and fled into the wilderness to the crack of the Rimmon. The Israelites picked out 5,000 men on the highways and kept pace with them as far as Gidon, where they struck down another 2,000 of them. The total of those from Benjamin who fell that day was 25,000 swordsmen, all of them warriors. 600 men turned and fled into the wilderness to crack up the Rimmon, where they remained for 4 months. Then the men of Israel turned back against the Benjaminites, putting them to the sword, the inhabitants of the city, the livestock, and all they came upon. Moreover, they destroyed by fire all the cities they came upon. Judges chapter 21, ensuring a future for the Benjamin. The men of Israel took an oath and Mizpah, "None of us will give his daughter in marriage to anyone from Benjamin." So the people went to battle and remained there before God until evening, raising their voice in bitter weeping. They said, "The Lord God of Israel, why has this happened in Israel, that today one tribe of Israel should be lacking?" Early the next day, the people built an altar there and offered the burnt offering and the communion offerings. Then the Israelites asked, "Are there any among all tribe of the Israel who did not come up to the Lord for the assembly?" For there was a solemn oath that anyone who did not go up to the Lord at Mizpah should not should be put to death. The Israelites were disconsolate over their brother Benjamin and said, "Today one tribe has been cut out from Israel. What can I do about the wives for the survivors, since we have sworn by the Lord not to give them any of our daughter in marriage?" And when they asked, "Is there one among the tribe of the Israel who did not come up to the Lord in Mizpah?" they found that none of the men of the Jabesh Gilead had come to the encampment for the assembly. A roll call of the people was taken, and none of the inhabitants of the Jabesh Gilead was present. So the assembly sent the 12,000 warriors there with orders, "Go put the inhabitants of the Jabesh Gilead to the sword. This is what you are to do. Every male and every woman who has had a relation with the male you shall put under the ban." Finding among the inhabitants of the Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgin women who had not had a relation with a man, they brought them to the camp at the Shiloh in the land of the Canaan. Then the whole assembly sent the word to the Benjaminites at the crack of the Rimmon, offering them peace. So Benjamin returned at that time, and they were given as wives the women of the Jabesh Gilead who had been spared. But this proved to be not enough for them. The people had regret about Benjamin because the Lord had made a breach among the tribe of the Israel. The elder of the assembly said, "What shall I do for wives for the survivors? For the woman of the Benjamin had been nearly rated." They said that there must be heirs for the survivor of the Benjamin, so the tribe will not be wiped out from Israel. Yet we cannot give them any of our daughter in marriage, for the Israelites had taken on ours. Cursed be he who gives a wife to Benjamin. Then they thought of the earlier feast of the Lord at the Shiloh, north of the Bethel, east of the highway that goes up from Bethel to Shechem, and south of the Lebanon. And they instructed the Benjaminites to go and set an ambush in the vineyard. "When you see the woman of the Shiloh come out to join in the dance, come out of the vineyard and catch a wife for each of you from the woman of the Shiloh. Then go on to the land of the Benjamin. When their father or their brother come to complain to us, we shall say to them, 'Release them to us as a kindness, since we did not take a woman for every man in battle, nor did you yourself give your daughter to them, thus incurring guilt.' The Benjaminites did this. They carried off a wife for each of them from thence they had seized, and they went back each to his own heritage, where they rebuilt the cities and settled them. At that time the Israelites dispersed from there for their own tribe and clans. They set out from there each to his own heritages. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in their own sight.